So when it comes to buying land, oftentimes what seems like a great deal can oftentimes not seem like a great deal because of the hidden costs that come with buying a piece of property. You see, you need to know what to expect and how to plan ahead before you sign that dotted line on that contract, because what you don't know about that piece of property could cost you thousands of dollars. Now, it's no surprise that what you'll find are some of the best deals on land. The best cost per land is typically out in rural areas. So you have to look at what amenities are close to that property. What amenities can you live without, such as churches, schools, hardware stores, restaurants, grocery stores. Is it 15 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? How far are you willing to drive? If it's going to take you, for example, an hour to get to Lowe's or Home Depot or Ace Hardware or your local hardware store, is that something that you can live with? Now, to start, you found a great piece of property and it seems like a great value, a good price, and you have to ask yourself, what is your plan with that property? What do you want to do with the land that you're purchasing? For the most part, people are buying a piece of land because they want to build a home on. They want to create what they call their homestead. So as you buy this land, you look at it, you like it, you make an offer to purchase on it. It's important to know there's a lot of things that you can do before you sign the contract and even after you sign the contract. Anything that you can do before you sign the contract, you can do after you sign the contract. So if you see a piece of property that you really like, it's okay to make an offer on it. And here's the reason why. Because there is a due diligence period. And during that due diligence period, typically it's 14 days, you can absolutely check and do your research on everything, and I highly recommend that you do. So it's good to go in with a checklist. What do you need to check? You need to check for permits, you need to check for restrictions, you need to check for easements, encroachments on the property. You want to know that if you're going to build a home on that property, you can do so. And you also need to look at, what if I want to put a mobile home on that property, even if for a short time of 6 months? Is it allowable within the deed restrictions of the property? But it's not just the restrictions. You see, you think you're buying a piece of property from the owner, and the owner says, yeah, you can do whatever you want to with it. There's no restrictions. There's no restrictive covenants or anything that's ever been written up on the property. However, there's this thing called a city, a county, and a parish. And even though it's your property, they can and still tell you what you can and can't do on the property. So how would you go about doing all this when it comes to buying a piece of land? You make an offer on a property and you have that due diligence period, as I'd mentioned. From there, you can absolutely pour everything you want to on that property. The plat map, the meets and bounds, the survey, and if it doesn't have a survey on the property, you want to get a survey on the property. Now, we did other videos specific for surveys, encroachments, and that sort of thing. We'll put a link below that we know will help you in the process of buying your piece of property. So look, what you don't want to do is just rely on anyone to do a survey on the property. You want to walk the property. You want to get back into the woods, and Lord forbid, get bug spray. Last thing you want to do is be eat up with a bunch of chiggers and mosquitoes, but you want to walk the property. It's your land. It's your piece of dirt that you're going to own until you decide to sell it into the future. So walk your property yourself. And look, if you see anything out of the ordinary, it's okay to ask questions and bring it up and say, what is this? I don't know about this. I've sold property where everything looks great, but you can't build within a certain area because it's a burial ground. We walk the property and there's tombstones, and the previous owner had no idea, supposedly. So look, when it comes to the contract, there's these big things called trees, and in the contract, you may not realize it, but you'll sign to buy a piece of property and the seller is retaining their timber rights. So all of a sudden you hear a chainsaw running, you're like, where's that coming from? Well, they come on your property that you just bought and they're taking down the timber because you didn't realize when you bought the property, they retained their timber rights. But look, it's not just timber rights, it's mineral rights. What you don't want is 55-gallon drums of crude oil on the property that somebody used to own an auto mechanic shop and they've dumped all over the property. That's why you got to walk your property, because you'll be walking and all of a sudden you come across 66 55-gallon drums of oil, of which have been leaching and leaking into the property, and now you just bought a piece of property that you've got to get an environmental permit on before you can do anything. But it's also important to know that when you buy a piece of land, you don't give up your mineral rights. You see, land has or could have minerals in that, meaning that you could dig for a well. You want to make sure you can be able to do that. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you're not going to give up your mineral rights. That way, when you purchase that property and you close on that property, no one can come on your property to dig a well, to take the oil or to do anything. You own it there to the center of the earth. It's also extremely important to know that when you're buying a piece of property, if it looks beautiful and it's just this open grassy field and there's no trees on it and you're thinking, wow, this is perfect, what a good deal, I don't have to pay to have those trees cut down, you have to make sure there's nothing that has been buried underneath that beautiful grass in the last 10-20 years that will prevent you from building your home. Yeah, believe it or not, people have burned trash, they've buried rubber tires, they've buried oil. So you just have to make sure, do a little research. That's the purpose of a title policy on a property and previous ownerships. And listen, I tell folks, get out and ask the neighbors, talk to your neighbors, talk to your future neighbors, and ask them what used to be on that property, who used to own that property. Find out the history on that property before you make it your property. Now, if you're going to build on the property, you have to also know that there's things called permits, and you have to get permits, but not just a building permit. You got to get permit to basically pull electricity to the property, and you have to make sure that you're not too far away from the poles of which you could pull such electricity. Otherwise, it can cost you a mountain of money. But you know, as an alternative to electricity, you can absolutely live off the grid. You can do solar panels as another means to pull power and electricity to your property. But it's not just about electricity. You have to have water. We all have to have water to survive. So you have to have water, and you also, if you're going to build a home, you want to have the means of which to get rid of the wastewater. They call that brown water and black water. And from there, you got to make sure that you can, in fact, put a septic system on the property, or you can tie into a city or the county or the parish sewer. Is there natural gas available to the property? If there's natural gas available to the property, that will take another permit. You're going to be able to tap into that. So you can see how when you start adding up the cost, you're going to have a building permit, you're going to have a septic permit, you're going to have a well permit. You got to have permits, and you got to make sure that you're showing your plans and everything and doing it all by board. Otherwise, your dreams will be shot. So you can see how the cost of land can add up really quick. It's not just the cost of the land. You have to ask yourself, what do you want to do with the property? If you're going to build a home on it, can you put temporary housing such as a mobile home, or park a motor home on the property for 6 to 8 months while you build that property? And pull in permits and check those costs. Another undisclosed cost that many people don't realize are city impact fees or county impact fees. Yes, they will charge you anywhere from $3,000 to $9,000 sometimes, I've heard, to build on your property just because they need to collect money from the county. But listen, the purpose of this video is not to discourage you buying land, it's to educate you so you know what to do, what to expect, so there's no hidden cost and hidden agenda. You want to make sure that's your property, no one can bother you, no one can touch you, it's your deal, and you don't overpay at the end of the day.